Sorry, we're having some problems with our internet connection here. Bear with me. I apologize for the delay. And Mr. Betcher, we are live, finally. My apologies for the delay.
Great. Thanks so much, Mr. Hirth. Today's Monday, June 14th. This is the Finance Committee meeting for the Village of Golf Manor. Mr. Lancer, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Betcher,
Here.
Ms. Cheney,
Here.
and Mr. Pridnoff.
Present.
All members are present.
Thank you so much. Do I have a motion to set the agenda and adopt?
Motion to adopt.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Nobody registered to address the council. We have minutes from May 24th last month. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Lancer, financial packet for May 2021.
All righty, hold on one second. All right, for the month of May, fiscal year 21, the Village of Golf Manor had an adjusted bank balance of $3.55 million. Of this amount, 3.51 can be found in the village's general checking account. The remaining balance is found in the several police department trust accounts. As always, I want to reiterate that the vast majority of the $3.5 million found in the village's primary checking account is actually fund accounted to the several dedicated road and street funds and can only be used for those purposes. As for payments, total payments for the month of May, fiscal year 21, totaled $210,000. The top 5 payment payees for the month were payroll, Rumpke, Ohio Police and Fire Pension, Cozy, and to account temps. As for receipts, the village's total receipts for the month were $177,000. Of this amount, the village generated $134,000 in general fund income tax receipts, and this figure was nearly $40,000 more than what the village was able to generate over the same period last year. For the year, total receipts stand at $366,000. This number is significant because now for the first time, the fiscal year of this fiscal year, total receipts exceed those from the same point last year. We're specifically referring to income tax. In previous reports, it was noted that income tax receipts were below the figures from the previous year, and this was attributed to the granting of income tax filing of the granting of the extension to the income tax filing deadline by the state and federal governments. This assumption seems to be confirmed. And once again, the village is on track with income tax revenue forecasts for the year. So that's good news. I know there was a little bit of a concern of where we stood. But as always, village administration will continue to monitor this source of revenue and will make any adjustments necessary. Hopefully, we don't have to make any at all, aside from possibly, hopefully, increasing the revenue forecast. As for appropriations, general fund appropriations for the month were $178,000. This figure was more than $18,000 more than what was spent during May of last year. Again, this is not entirely unexpected, as appropriations are greater for fiscal year 21 than they were for last year. For the year, total appropriation spend is 39% of total appropriations. And as a percentage, this figure is just over 1% more than where we were through May of last year. That's the end of my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Any questions for Mr. Lanzer? All right, thank you, Mr. Lanzer. Moving to the funding sources for 2022 Elbrook Road project and potential Weehee Road project.
Okay. As you may recall, back in the spring, we had updated our road project list for 2022 and beyond. It was a 5-year plan. Our number one priority after Vera Elbrook was the Elbrook Street from Lisanaville Avenue to the Corporation Limit at Cincinnati. Our second project was Weehee Road from Corporation Line to Corporation Line, which also included replacement of the sidewalks. And then our third project was completely redoing Hamel from the Corporation Line to Canterbury Piper, and then doing Canterbury all the way from Hamel to Englewood, and then doing the entire stretch of Englewood. The process that the road engineer goes through to rate the roads and their severity, if need of repair, and the methods that they use to determine what kind of funding we get are something that's conducted every spring and fall season. And out of our 3 projects, our number 1 was to do Elbrook. However, we got funding for our number 3. And then they decided not to qualify all of Hamel for reconstruction. In fact, Hamel got completely kicked out of the project. What is being done now, or what our road project for next year, that will be 50% grant and 50% loan that's paid back 20 years at 0% interest. That project is going to be Canterbury from Fair Oaks to Englewood, and then the entire stretch of Englewood. Part of the reason that particular project was chosen also coincides with a major water main replacements that's going to take place on both of those streets. So that leaves us with a couple of problems. One is, from a quality of life standpoint, the road engineer and the administration believe that Elbrook is in the worst shape. That was one of the roads that was first done maybe 15, 18 years ago. But the approach to replacing the roads at that time was simply to patch the curbs. And what we're seeing happen is the patches are now starting to fail and entire sections of curb are deteriorating. That is causing an undermining of the road surface. And particularly if you've been on Piper, taking a right onto Elbrook towards Bremont, you'll see that the road is starting to shale there. And a part of that is that continual assault of water, salt during the winter, ice freezing and thawing, all that good stuff that hates asphalt. So we're trying to find ways to get that project done. The second quality of life issue, we believe, is the Weehee Road project. And the situation on the eastern side of Weehee, past Rosedale up to Bremont, is about as severe as Elbrook. However, there are a lesser number of residents on that street. So we're trying to find ways to also get that Weehee project done. So the Elbrook project will come in at around $730,000 total project to replace the curbs, redo the street. There'll also be a water main replacement with that project. And then the Weehee project will come in at about $1.3 million, same kind of process. It's a little more involved because the sidewalks are a part of the curb, so the sidewalks will get replaced also during that project. So as we spoke at the last council meeting, there are transportation funds that are available through the levy that was passed last year to increase taxes for things that benefited Metro. Weehee Road is a Metro route and qualifies or should qualify for some type of funding for the road project. So we are pursuing through our road engineer, which council gave us the authority to do at the last council meeting, funding that particular project. Hopefully, we will get funding for that. If that project does not come through, it makes sense then to resubmit that to the state and the county in 2023 for our road project that year. Alternately, the Elbrook project did qualify for a 100% loan from the county. So what they are proposing is a 20-year interest-free loan of $730,000 that we would be able to pay back over a 20-year period. When we get those kinds of loans, we're able to pay them back. There's a minimum that you have to pay on a monthly basis, but there's also, actually it's biannual basis. You can also pay them off early if you make the decision to do that. And that frankly is how we funded the loan portions of the other projects that we've done. Mr. Lanzer did an analysis for us. We have about $2 million in the bank in road fund at the moment. We are leveraging that to cover the other projects that are in progress. And our recommendation is to move forward with council to ask for their authorization to go ahead and apply for the $730,000 loan. Again, interest-free, 20 years to pay it. And that would allow us to put the Elbrook project on the docket for 2022, along with the Short Canterbury Englewood project. It's a long story. Any questions?
Not for me. I just wanted to make sure that it was an option that we could reapply or continue to reapply for those grants for future, for other projects, things like that.
There were a lot of needs this year, and the road engineer got hit heavily, particularly Norwood, City of Cincinnati. We've been very fortunate the last 3 funding cycles to get the money that we have. I think we've got close to $2.5 million in grants, which is why we've been so aggressive on our roads. This is one of those situations where we have the funds to be able to do it. The funds are available and are dedicated to doing street types of projects. And I believe that this would be very beneficial, as a lot of the complaints that we get about roads right now are on Elbrook. And honestly, once Elbrook is done, the only other street that really needs some attention to the level that Elbrook is at would be Hamel from Canterbury Piper to the Corp line. At that point, I believe we've touched just about everything that was deteriorated. And then we start all over.
Mr. Pridnoff, Ms. Cheney, any questions or thoughts?
No, I think an interest-free loan and we have the money to back it up and it's 20 years and we can get that road done. I think we do it.
And obviously, our
It
goal would
just
be to try.
comes from the general fund on the road funds on that. Is that in the general fund or that's actually completely separate?
It's completely separate as part of the road levy.
Yeah, it'll be.
Right. Okay.
It'll be funded from the road levy. So I believe, I don't have the schedule in front of me, but it's $18,000 a year. 2 payments, $9,000 each every year. And we have the option to repay it early, as Ron said. It's similar to the Stover project that we're making biannual payments on now.
Do you need a recommendation from this committee to council to approve that?
Your endorsement would be welcome. It is a piece of legislation that you have before you this evening to allow us to move forward with authority to apply for the loan.
I say we make a recommendation to council to do this.
I'll second it. And then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you, Mr. Hirth. Continuing on for pending business, funding replacement of the firehouse and rec center roof.
That particular project is actually starting on Friday of this week. We're having a construction meeting tomorrow. We were expecting it to be next week. So it's exciting that that's going. The funding of this, when we originally passed our legislation a couple of council meetings ago, our thought was that we would be funding this through US Bank. What we found out is that US Bank does not make loans based on real estate. And the fact that the roof is integrated as a major part of the building, it's considered a real estate loan. So we were not able to do funding through them. We also had reached out to a couple of other banks. PNC has stopped doing this type of funding. So Mr. Donlin has some municipal funding sources that he's looking at. In talking with Mr. Lanzer, we do have the funds to be able to just pay for the roof straight out. If we wish to do that, we would need to reappropriate some funds to do that. Our wish is to find funding to be able to pay it off on a monthly basis as we had done previously. So we'll continue to work on this and hopefully we'll have a solution and legislation for finance to look at on July 12th when we get to that point. Andy, did you have anything that you wanted to add regarding funding this out of the budget?
If we fund it from the budget, fortunately, we are carrying a reserve. So there's 2 options. We could reappropriate existing appropriations that are unused from the general fund. The challenge will be with that is every penny that's been appropriated has been appropriated for a reason. The most likely solution, I guess the best word, is to appropriate money from the reserve to fund the project. Not ideal, but there's a reason why you the nice thing about our approach to financing is we built up the reserve and you build it up for instances like this. So if that's what needs to happen, we have the resources available to do it, and we will come to council for an appropriations adjustment.
What's the total cost of the project, if you can remind me?
It's $92,000. So it's important that we get this done because the status of that building, the condition of it, is an important key factor in negotiations for our future fire service. It'll be good to get this project off our plate and completed.
All right, keep us posted. Thank you. Moving into other pending business, pay and merit pay strategy. I think Mr. Mayor, you wanted to discuss this.
Yeah, I briefed this, the finance committee, I believe at our previous finance committee on my thoughts on this. I was not prepared to speak to it tonight. if you would afford me an opportunity to give my full thoughts on that, I'd be happy to do so. I could speak to it generally if you want to, but if, you know.
I'd rather wait till next month to give you some time to prepare for it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mr. Betcher, there is one item that I'm sorry that I did not mention at the beginning of the agenda, but we do need to talk about the police department detail rate. We had a discussion a couple of months ago about that, but we really didn't come to a conclusion. What we need to do this evening is have Chief Campbell talk with you about some specifics regarding the detail rate. And then we would need the committee to ask to have legislation amending our pay ordinance to add this rate to our pay ordinance going forward. Chief Campbell.
Yeah, if you recall, I had mentioned that we had been investigating creating a detail rate for the purpose of when officers work the OVI task force detail, which is an off-duty detail that's reimbursed by the state of Ohio. Our thought was when officers work this detail, we complete a sheet that is forwarded to the sponsoring agency for Hamilton County, which is Blue Ash. They send it off to the state reimburses. One of the challenges with this is when Sergeant Reed is our point of contact for this, when he there's different rates for each person. They can change throughout the year based on when their anniversary date may be, when they may have a merit increase. And so the thought was to do an across the board detail rate for every officer so that there is no guessing or reducing. It reduces the chance for error when it's submitted for payment. And then we're not going back to make sure we're having to reimburse the state if we're overpaid or underpaid. There was question if that was proper to do that. I forwarded some documentation from the memorandum of understanding, which does allow for that. The wording, if you'll bear with me, wording says that costs incurred by the political subrecipient, which is us, for overtime enforcement pay at a set rate for special duty could be set by a labor contract, which we don't need, or if documented by the jurisdiction's auditor, they are allowable. So we can, and one of the things I like about this too, is it allows us to compensate our part-time officers or even auxiliary officers if they were to work this detail. So we're looking for approval to get that taken care of.
So at this point, you just need a recommendation for the solicitor to prepare legislation.
I believe so. Ron could speak to that more. To me, it doesn't look like it even needs legislation. It just says if documented by our auditor. So if we created that in our pay scale, but I would defer to Ron and Terry on that.
Mr. Hirth, is there any thoughts on that, or has there been input given from the solicitor? We may have lost Mr. Hirth. Any concerns from the rest of the committee? I think we could probably give the direction to go ahead and do that. Ms. Cheney, Mr. Pranoff, any thoughts from your side?
If I may, also one thing I want to remind is the full rate of the hours worked for the officer is reimbursed. Then there's a formula where it's, I don't have the exact percentage, approximately 25% of the hourly rate for the officer is added to the amount to offset costs of fuel, some of the benefits and things like that. So there's, it's the hours worked by the officer plus approximately 25% added on top of that. That comes back to the village, and it provides the village with an extra officer on duty during those hours at a very minimal cost if there's anything left over.
Okay, so explain to me how it works. So if the officer is off duty and let's say he's sitting over at the school, what happen if an emergency comes through and he's needed? Is he allowed to leave that?
Yes, just the basis of it being an emergency. But for this conversation, what we're talking about is the OVI task force. That's an agreement set aside. I think there's 14 counties in Ohio that can participate in this. And what it's done is it puts an officer on duty in uniform on patrol looking for intoxicated or drivers under the influence, looking for seatbelt violations, driving without license, driving under suspension. Those hours are set aside each month, depending on the time of year. It's generally between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. And the hours vary from 10 to 40 hours per month. That allows us to officer on the road that's reimbursed by the state.
Sorry, I was confused.
I understand. That's okay.
Sorry.
You have the detail you speak to. If we have officers doing an off-duty detail, say at the synagogue or the school, and there's an emergency, absolutely they will respond. They're not going to patrol. Their responsibility is to the school, but if there's an emergency, they absolutely will respond.
From a fiscal, I mean, it sounds like the cost of us having that officer on this patrol are reimbursed. I mean, the pay plus the 25% differential or whatever it is. It doesn't sound like there's a downside or a cost for us to be a part of that program. Am I correct?
Correct. We've always been involved in this program. The police department has. We've done it for as long as I've been here. Most jurisdictions in Hamilton County participate in this program as well. But if you've seen the news, when they do kickoffs for Click It or Ticket season, usually around Memorial Day, when they do drive sober or get pulled over, normally at the end of the year around the holidays, they do public announcements. We participate in those. We send personnel to some of those events, and then the officers patrol within the village those hours that are allowed to us. Everybody in Hamilton County is pretty much a part of it. The thing we're changing is just creating a separate detail rate so that, again, if a part-time officer is not eligible for time and a half, they can do it as a detail, which is allowable, and then it's reimbursed.
There's a comment from Miss Gideon, I believe, who's having some technical difficulties, that it doesn't cover full-time employees OP and F. I'm not sure what that means. It states
That's
that
Ohio Police and Fire. That's their retirement.
okay, states that full-time employees get agreed upon rate, part-time are at 1.5. I'm not sure exactly what she's referring to with that.
I don't know. Again, if we bill at a different rate for each officer based on time and a half, we still use the same formula where there's approximately 25% added. So that's the same regardless of what that rate actually is. That percentage remains the same. So it increases with the increased rate. There may be some leftover cost to the village, but again, they're getting an extra officer in the village for pennies on the dollar during those hours.
I think if council generally agrees that, or this committee agrees that pursuing an amendment to our pay ordinance makes sense to accommodate this program. One of the things Mr. Donlin and I had spoken about after a conversation I had with the chief today is this legislation can be structured to be based on whatever contractual information is given to us from the agency to set that rate. So that would allow us to have the ability to flex the rate as the amounts that they're paying us may change. They may never change, but at that point, then we wouldn't be in the situation where we would have to change our pay ordinance every time there would be a change in the detail.
Yeah, Ron and I discussed that. I'm in agreement with that. I think if it allows for a detail rate to be set by the agreement of that specific detail. And this is the only one that works this way, where it's paid through the village. Typically, if officers do a detail at a sporting event, at a synagogue, at a school, that organization pays the officer directly, like they would a contracted person. So that doesn't come through the village. This is the only one that's reimbursed through the village, that the officers, the patrol officers would utilize.
All right, so we need a recommendation to Mr. Donovan, I think, to prepare that legislation, Mr. Hurd.
Yeah, if you're in agreement that this is something we pursue, I don't know that anything formal needs to be done. We will go ahead and have something for the finance committee to take a look at the July meeting.
Great. Easy enough. And then some old business with the audit for 2019-2020.
Nothing new to report there. They have received, I think as of the last council meeting, we've sent all the document requests has been sent to them. We just are working out a time and then working on the hard documents that they want to have ready to review. As for new potential COVID funding, I don't have anything new to update on that. Maybe Ron does, but I have not learned the exact amount yet. I know a little guidance has come out, working through that, but nothing much to report on there either.
Yeah, there was a rather lengthy document that came out from the Ohio Municipal League over the weekend that I've not had a chance to take a look at yet. What I hear other communities are doing, which may very well be a process that we would wish to do, is to start looking at the kinds of things that fall into their categories that would be approved, and then to start to lay out and get some feedback from council on doing some of these projects. It sounds like the half of that money will come to us in fiscal 2021, and the other half will show up in 22 or 23. So it's really kind of spread out over a 2 to 3 year period.
All right, and then I just had one follow-up question on some old businesses. The RFP for banking services. I know it closed, I think, in May. Wanted to see where things stand with that.
Yeah, well, we went through the. That's actually in my report at the council meeting. Looking here. So we
can wait till council if you just don't want to do it twice.
That's fine. We're basically doing follow-up discussions with a couple of the vendors at this point. There were two that looked promising. We'll have a recommendation in July.
Perfect. And then, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say there is one other thing, just one small thing.
Yeah.
The budget review is going to be in need of having a public hearing at the next council meeting in July. Speaking with Mr. Donnellan today, we would need to ask council to schedule a tax budget hearing at 7:15 p.m. on Monday, July 12th, 2021. So that would cut this meeting short by 15 minutes, and we would do the budget hearing just before the council meeting. So we'll ask for that during Mr. Lanzer's report at the full council meeting.
All right. And then we need to go into an executive session for matters of personnel and compensation. I believe I need a vote on that.
Yeah, it'll be a first,
call.
second, and a roll call.
All right, so I'll make a motion.
Okay,
That
so
we-
moved.
All right, got a movement, and then I'll get.
Second.
All right, and then a roll call, Mr. Lancer.
Mr. Batcher,
Yes.
Ms. Cheney,
Yes.
and Mr. Pridnoff. Mr. Pridnoff?
I'm sorry. I said I'm having audio issues. I've said yes a few times. I apologize. Yes.
So it's a definite yes. Before we adjourn,
That is my final answer.
before we adjourn to the executive session, I would like to state my profound thanks to Anna Gedian for attending these meetings the last 2-3 years. This is her last finance committee. I'm sorry she does not have a connection to us at the moment because I'd like her to see us waving to her. But Anna has been a real contributor and has helped us to stabilize the finances of the village. And I just can't say how much I appreciate her work. And she will be missed. And that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Anna. I know that she watches the replays of these, so I'm sure she'll see us all waving.
Thanks, Anna. Enjoy your retirement. It's great.
All right, I'm going to send everybody but Paula, Anna, Steve, and Chief Campbell and Andy over to the breakout room. Bear with me.
I'm gonna be unmuted, I don't know. I don't. Okay, so I'm there.
Okay, is everybody here?
I believe so. At this point, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion
So
to
moved.
adjourn.
All right. Second for Mr. Brinoff, we'll call it. All those in favor?
That works.
Aye. We are adjourned. We'll see everybody at 7:30 for full council.
Yeah, and Mr. Donlin, I'm gonna go ahead and close this out because I'm having technical issues. I just kind of need to refresh here. So we'll see you in a new meeting.
I'll log back in.
Thank
Or
you.
Same meeting address or new address?
Same address.
All right.
Thank you.